The rain came down hard enough to drown out the radio, each drop striking the windshield like a warning. Daniel Harper welcomed the silence. Silence didn't ask questions. It didn't remind him that the rent was due or that his son's shoes were wearing thin at the soles. Noah slept in the backseat, his small chest rising and falling beneath a threadbare jacket. His dinosaur toy was tucked under his chin, green plastic teeth pressed against his cheek. Daniel glanced at him through the rearview mirror and smiled faintly. Every mile he drove was for that boy. The highway stretched ahead, empty, endless, unforgiving. Then the headlights caught her. At first, Daniel thought it was debris. A shadow twisted by rain and darkness. But the shape moved. A woman stood on the shoulder of the road, her pale dress clinging to her like torn paper, one side ripped nearly to the thigh. She wasn't waving. She wasn't screaming. She was waiting. Daniel's foot hovered over the brake. People didn't just stand on highways at night unless something had gone terribly wrong. His heart pounded. He thought of all the warnings. All the news stories. Single fathers didn't take risks, not when someone depended on them. But then she turned her face slightly toward the road, and Daniel saw it. Fear. Not panic. Not hysteria. Controlled, silent fear, like someone trained never to make a scene. The car slowed before he consciously decided to stop. "Dad," Noah mumbled, stirring. "Hey, buddy," Daniel whispered. "Just resting my eyes." The lie tasted bitter. Daniel pulled onto the shoulder and cracked the window. Rain blew in immediately, cold and sharp. "Miss," he called. "Are you hurt?" She startled, shoulders stiffening, like she'd expected something worse. Slowly, she stepped closer, staying just outside the beam of the headlights. "My phone's dead," she said. Her voice shook despite her effort to steady it. "I've been walking for hours." Up close, he saw the damage. Mud streaked her hem. One shoe was gone. Faint bruises darkened her wrist, the marks of fingers that hadn't wanted to let go. "You shouldn't be out here," Daniel said. Her lips pressed together. "I know, but I couldn't stay." Daniel glanced at the backseat again. Noah was watching now, wide-eyed but quiet. "What happened?" Daniel asked gently. She hesitated, then shook her head. "I just need to get away. I don't care where." The rain soaked her hair, plastering it to her face. She looked nothing like a hitchhiker, and everything like someone who had escaped something expensive and dangerous. Daniel exhaled slowly. Once, years ago, his wife had stood stranded on a road like this after her car broke down. A stranger had stopped for her. That stranger had saved her life. "Get in," Daniel said, unlocking the door. "We'll figure it out from there." She stared at him, disbelief cracking through her composure. Then her knees nearly buckled as relief rushed in. "Thank you," she whispered. As she slid into the passenger seat, shivering, Noah leaned forward. "Are you a princess?" he asked seriously. She laughed softly. Once, like the sound surprised her. "No," she said, pulling the door closed. "Not anymore." And as Daniel merged back onto the highway, he had no idea he'd just picked up a woman the world was already searching for. The car felt warmer now, but the silence between them had weight. Daniel kept his eyes on the road, hands steady on the wheel, while the woman sat stiffly in the passenger seat, fingers knotted together in her lap like she was holding herself in place. Rain streaked the windows, turning the world outside into long silver lines. "You warm enough?" Daniel asked. She nodded. "Yes, thank you." Her voice was controlled, careful, each word measured, as if she were used to being recorded. Daniel noticed the way she sat, straight back despite exhaustion, chin lifted even when she was afraid. People learned posture like that. It wasn't instinct. "What's your name?" he asked gently. There was a pause, just a breath too long. "Lena," she said. Daniel didn't react. He'd learned that names were sometimes shields. If she wanted to give him a false one, that was her right. "Well, I'm Daniel," he said. "And the chatterbox back there is Noah." Noah popped up immediately. "I'm not a chatterbox." Lena turned around, her expression softening instantly. "Hi, Noah." He studied her torn dress and bare foot. "Did you fight a dragon?" Something inside her cracked. She laughed. A real laugh this time, then pressed her fingers to her lips as if surprised by it. "Something like that." Daniel pulled into a small roadside diner glowing like a lighthouse in the storm. The kind of place that smelled like coffee and fried onions and second chances. Inside, warmth wrapped around them. Noah slid into the booth, already excited. Lena hesitated at the door, suddenly self-conscious. "You don't have to come in," Daniel said. "I can grab something to go." "No," she said quickly. "I want to." The waitress glanced at Lena's torn dress, her wet hair, but said nothing. Daniel appreciated that. They ordered pancakes. Noah talked endlessly about dinosaurs and school. Lena listened as if every word mattered. She watched Daniel, too, the way he wiped Noah's face without thinking, the way he cut the pancakes smaller. "You love him," she said quietly when Noah ran to the restroom. "He's my whole world." Her eyes shone, but she looked away. "Then you're rich." Daniel frowned. "I can barely afford these pancakes." She shook her head. "That's not the kind of rich I mean." The waitress returned and asked gently, "Sweetheart, you want to call someone?" Lena stiffened. Her hand tightened around the coffee cup. "No," she said too fast. Daniel stood, signaling the end. He paid in cash, leaving a generous tip he couldn't really spare. Back in the car, Lena stared at her reflection in the dark window, torn dress, smeared makeup, freedom staring back at her for the first time. "You don't owe me anything," Daniel said as he started the engine. "But if you need somewhere safe for the night, I have a couch." She swallowed hard. "Why would you do that?" Daniel met her eyes. "Because my son is watching." For the first time since she'd stepped onto the road, Lena believed she might survive the night. And she prayed he would never learn the name she'd left behind. Daniel's apartment smelled faintly of laundry detergent and leftover soup. It wasn't much. 2 small bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, and furniture that had survived more moves than Daniel cared to remember, but it was clean, warm, and quiet. Safe. Noah fell asleep quickly, exhaustion winning over curiosity. Daniel tucked the blanket around him, brushed damp hair from his son's forehead, and lingered a moment longer than usual. When he turned back toward the kitchen, Lena was standing there like she didn't quite know where to put herself. "Make yourself comfortable," Daniel said. She nodded but didn't move. They sat at the small kitchen table, the overhead light buzzing softly. Daniel poured 2 mugs of tea. Lena wrapped her hands around hers without drinking. "They'll be looking for me," she said suddenly. The words landed heavy. Daniel looked up. "Who will?" She took a breath so slow it looked painful. "Everyone." He waited. "My family," she continued. "My fiancé. His security team. Private investigators. Lawyers." Her mouth twisted. "Probably helicopters." Daniel let out a humorless laugh, then stopped when he saw her face. She wasn't joking. "You're serious," he said. "Yes." She rolled up her sleeve. Red marks bloomed faintly on her wrist, fingerprints that hadn't fully faded. "He doesn't hit," she said quickly, as if correcting a misunderstanding. "He doesn't need to." Daniel's jaw tightened. "His name is Victor Hale." The room seemed to shrink. Daniel stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor. "That Victor Hale," she nodded once. "The billionaire. The tech emperor. The man whose face filled business magazines and billboards. I was supposed to marry him tonight," Lena said. "The wedding happened, just not the way the world thinks." She explained it in pieces. Contracts disguised as vows, a future negotiated like a merger, her family smiling while she signed away her autonomy. Every sentence sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced surviving it. "I ran during the reception," she said. "Security caught me once. I got away again." Her voice broke. "I didn't even make it off the property before I realized how little freedom I actually had." Daniel paced the room, anger simmering under his skin. "You should go to the police." She shook her head. "They protect him. Or fear him. Either way, they don't protect me." Silence settled between them. "I don't want to put you or your son in danger," she said softly. "If you want me gone by morning, I'll understand." Daniel stopped pacing. He thought of Noah asleep in the next room. Of the way Lena had smiled at him in the diner. Of how fear had lived in her eyes long before tonight. "You're not going anywhere," Daniel said. Her breath caught. "Why?" "Because I know what it's like to be trapped," he replied. "And because no one owns another human being." Tears slipped down Lena's cheeks, unrestrained now. For the first time in her life, someone wasn't trying to control her. They were choosing to protect her. And outside, Far beyond the walls of that small apartment, an empire was already waking up and realizing its bride was gone. The dawn was pale, washed-out gray, but Daniel saw them immediately. Sleek black SUVs lined the street outside like predators, engines idling, tinted windows hiding faces he couldn't read. Lena's breath hitched beside him. "They found me," she whispered. Daniel swallowed hard, keeping his voice steady. "Stay calm. We can do this smart." Noah peeked through the curtains, wide-eyed. "Dad, why are those cars scary?" "They're not here for us," Daniel said, forcing a smile. Inside, his pulse was a drum. He wasn't sure it was true. The knock came sharp, 3 heavy raps on the front door. Daniel felt the floorboards under his feet vibrate with each tap. Then a smooth voice from the other side. "Mr. Harper, we just want to talk." Lena froze. Her hands trembled in hers. Daniel stepped in front of her, towering between the door and the fragile safety of his apartment. "You don't get to talk to her," he said, voice low but firm. The man's smile was thin, polished, practiced. "She belongs to Mr. Hale. You know who I am, right?" Daniel's jaw clenched. "No one belongs to anyone." Inside, Lena's phone buzzed violently. News alerts. Headlines exploding on the screen. Billionaire's bride missing. Last seen fleeing wedding. Her face went pale. Her identity was no longer secret. Daniel grabbed the essentials. Keys, nose backpack, Lena's hand, and moved quickly to the back exit. "Where are we going?" she asked, voice trembling. "Somewhere they can't find us right now," Daniel replied. "Stay close. Don't say anything, and don't look back." The rain had stopped overnight, leaving the streets slick and shiny. Daniel led them through alleyways he had only ever used when trying to avoid city traffic. Each shadow seemed to watch, every echo of tires against pavement made his pulse spike. Noah held tightly to Daniel's jacket, murmuring, "Are we running from bad guys?" Daniel crouched slightly, brushing nose hair from his forehead. "Sometimes we have to run to protect the people we love." They reached an abandoned subway entrance, a place Daniel had once used when he was a teenager, sneaking into the city unnoticed. The stairs led down into darkness, cool and damp. He flicked on a small flashlight and motioned them forward. Lena's grip on his hand was fierce. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Because I've lost before," Daniel said. "I won't let anyone take what I still have." They moved through tunnels, silent except for the drip of water and the occasional scurry of a rat. Outside, the empire that owned her life was waking up, alert and relentless. But in the shadows of the subway, Lena felt something she hadn't in months: control. Autonomy. Hope. Finally, they emerged near the riverfront. The city sprawled beyond them, early commuters unaware of the heiress on the run with a single father and his son. Lena exhaled, tears running freely down her cheeks. I don't even know your name," she said. Daniel smiled faintly. "Daniel, and this little troublemaker," he nudged Noah, "is the reason I do what I do." She looked at them both, trembling, soaked, and terrified, but alive. "Thank you," she whispered. "No," Daniel said. "No one thanks anyone for doing the right thing. You survive. That's enough." Behind them, the engines roared to life again. But for the first time in her life, Lena believed she could escape. Not just from the man who thought she belonged to him, but from a life that had always felt like a cage. And Daniel, he didn't know it yet, but this chase, the danger, the responsibility, was only the beginning.